Hello there, very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Ask for Eslon Polycon by name.
Trump says discussions with Iran are going well and they have promised not to possess nuclear weapons. Iranian speaker says no discussions have been held with America. A peace effort mediated by Pakistan. Possible meeting between the US Vice President and the Iranian speaker this weekend. A fire at an oil refinery in Texas, USA. Philippines president declares a national energy emergency. Discussions to obtain oil from Russia continue. Minister Nalinda says Deputy Energy Minister of Russia will arrive in Sri Lanka soon. Asian Development Bank increases approved funds by another $100 million. A public petition requesting a change in administration at SLC.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Ask for Eslon Polycon by name.
Starting off with your top story tonight, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he held a phone conversation with US President Donald Trump, exchanging views on the ongoing situation in West Asia. Posting on X, Modi emphasized India's support for de-escalation and early restoration of peace. He added that both leaders highlighted the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, secure and accessible for global trade. In his post on X, Modi went on to note that they agreed to stay in touch on efforts to ensure regional peace and stability. Meanwhile, explosions were reported today at several locations in Iran and Israel amid escalating tensions between the two sides. The latest attacks occurred against the backdrop of renewed remarks by US President Donald Trump, who reiterated that discussions were ongoing with Iran, highlighting the growing complexity of diplomatic efforts alongside continued military exchanges.
Iran has named Mohammad Bagher Zulgadar as the new Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, the IRNA news agency reports citing the president's office. Zulgadar replaces Ali Larijani, who was assassinated last week. The United States and Israeli forces have carried out missile strikes targeting several cities in Iran, according to foreign media reports. The attacks, which took place overnight, reportedly targeted Tehran, Tabriz, Isfahan and Karaj. In Isfahan, strikes hit a gas control center and a building, while damage was also reported to gas pipeline infrastructure at the Khurram Shahar power facility. Foreign media reported that Saeed Samaghdari, a professor at the Tehran University of Science and Technology, and his two children were killed when a strike hit their residence. Meanwhile, Hezbollah said it carried out attacks on 5 Israeli targets early today. According to foreign media reports, the attacks were conducted using rockets and drones targeting Israeli military camps, radar installations and artillery positions. The Israeli military said additional missile attacks were launched toward Israeli territory. In a statement, it said air defense systems were activated to intercept the incoming strikes. The developments come amid questions over whether talks between Iran and the United States are continuing. US President Donald Trump had earlier issued a warning to Iran, giving a 48-hour deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That deadline expired at 5:14 a.m. local time today. However, Trump announced yesterday that based on discussions with Iran, postponed by 5 days. Speaking to the media in Memphis, the former U.S. president reiterated that discussions with Iran were ongoing.
I've directed the Department of War to temporarily postpone planned strikes against major energy and electricity targets in Iran. We've had very good discussions, very, very good discussions. And you have to understand, I know my whole life has been a negotiation, but with Iran, we've been negotiating for a long time. And this time, they mean business. And it's only because of the great job that our military did is the reason they mean business. They want to settle, and we're going to get it done, I hope. Hopefully this will be possible, but no matter what, we'll ensure that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They would have had one if we allowed the Obama deal to stand. That was the Iran nuclear deal, they called it. They would have had one, Marcia 3. We're systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America. They're not threatening us anymore. As Commander-in-Chief, it's my sacred responsibility to protect our country from all threats. For decades, Iran refused every opportunity to renounce its nuclear ambitions, and in recent months, its own negotiators bragged to our representatives about having enough material to make nuclear weapons. And that was supposed to deter me, but it didn't deter. It made me more anxious, and it just made it much more important. This mission that we're all on together was much more important, and we did it quicker. I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people, and I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror, and they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up, and you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that, and I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see. You have to get it done. But I would say there's a very good chance.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel acted independently in a recent strike on a gas compound and is currently refraining from further attacks at the request of US President Donald Trump.
President Trump said today he did not like the Israeli strike on the Iranian gas fields. My question to you, was the president aware of Israel striking that gas field? Did you approve it?
Well, I'll say two things. Fact number one, Israel acted alone against the Slawiya gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out. What do we see? What happens if are there any signs that the Iranian regime is cracking? A lot of signs. A lot of signs. I wish I could divulge all of them, but I see that. But will I tell you, will I commit right now that it's going to collapse? I can tell you that we're working to create the conditions for it to collapse, but it may survive, it may not. If it survives, it'll be a lot weaker. There's no comparison. It'll be at its weakest point. As Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, said, these are the two most amazing air forces in the world. It's the two most amazing intelligence services in the world. It has the capabilities to confront these barbarians and to outstrip them, both in innovation and when necessary in lethality. It's directed, it's targeted lethality. It's going against the killers and as much as possible to avoid civilian casualties. We have those capacities. We're building them for the future. That is what safeguards the future. If people want to be naive, then they don't see the kind of world we're living in. In this world, it's not enough to be moral. It's not enough to be just. It's not enough to be right.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has announced the launch of the 78th wave of its ongoing retaliatory campaign, Operation True Promise 4, targeting what it described as highly sensitive Israeli sites as well as several United States military bases in the region. The IRGC described the latest strikes as setting a distinct record in the timeline of the war, while it said targets in the occupied port city of Eilat, the northern part of Tel Aviv, and Dimona, a heavily fortified city near Israel's nuclear reactor, were hit using IMAD and multi-warhead Qadr missile systems along with attack drones. According to the IRGC, the 78th wave of the operation also included attacks on several US military bases across the region. Pakistan's foreign ministry has told Al Jazeera that Islamabad is ready to host talks between the US and Iran to seek a negotiated settlement to the conflict if the warring parties wish. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Tahir Andrabi said, quote, "If the parties desire, Islamabad is always willing to host talks," unquote, adding that Quote, it has consistently advocated for dialogue and diplomacy to promote peace and stability in the region, unquote. Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Azim Munir spoke to Trump on Sunday, while Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian a day later. This was followed by Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar holding separate calls with his Iranian and Turkish counterparts. Iran's Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf has said the world must choose between standing with the besieged Gaza Strip or siding with what he described as child torture, stressing that there is no middle ground. Abbas Ali-Abadi has downplayed the threat of attacks to Iran's power plants, saying the country has decentralized its electricity production and has plans to quickly rebuild any plants should they be hit. The minister said in comments carried by the state broadcaster IRIB, quote, people should not be concerned at all. If power plants are hit, they will be rebuilt and modernized quickly, unquote. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has spoken by phone with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Lati to discuss US and Israeli attacks on Iran and Iran's legitimate defenses, according to an Iranian Foreign Ministry statement carried out by the Tasnim news agency. Meanwhile, an explosion at the Valero refinery in Port Arthur, Texas, caused officials to issue a warning for some residents in the west of the city to shelter in place. Flames and a tall plume of smoke was seen rising from the refinery after the incident that Sheriff Zena Stephens said was likely caused by an industrial heater. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for the US and Iran to come to the negotiating table and immediately end the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the war.
I'm deeply concerned about the conflict. Iran has to cease immediately its threats, laying of mines, drones and missile attacks and other attempts to block the strait to commercial shipping. The recent attacks by Iran on unarmed commercial vessels in the Gulf, attacks on civilian infrastructure, including oil and gas installations, and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian forces is unacceptable and must be condemned. I also want to emphasize that freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle of international law. We think that it is time to go to the negotiation table and to end the hostilities. The situation is critical for the energy supplies worldwide. We all feel the knock-on effects on gas and oil prices, our businesses and our societies. But it is of utmost importance that we come to a solution that is negotiated, and this puts an end to the hostilities that we see in the Middle East.
What's happening to oil prices? Global oil prices, which had fallen following reports of talks between the United States and Iran, climbed again by this afternoon. The BBC reported that the price of a barrel of London Brent crude once again rose above the $100 mark. During the morning, Brent crude prices increased by 4% to reach $104 per barrel before easing to around $102 by the afternoon. In the United States, crude oil prices in the WTI market rose by 3.87% during the morning to $91.54 per barrel. By the afternoon, the WTI crude price had declined slightly to $90.35 per barrel.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held discussions with Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath, focusing on the repercussions of the ongoing conflict in West Asia. In a message shared on social media platform X, Dr. Jaishankar described the exchange as a good conversation, noting that the impact of the West Asia crisis was a key topic of discussion. He reaffirmed India's commitment to its neighborhood first policy and the Vision Mahaskar. Moving on to more news, Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa says that discussions regarding the purchase of oil from Russia are underway and that the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister is scheduled to visit Sri Lanka in the near future. He adds that no discussions have taken place regarding the procurement of oil from Iran so far.
Discussions with Russia are ongoing at a diplomatic level. However, as you are aware, we haven't had the opportunity to purchase oil from Russia in the recent past. Therefore, we are currently exploring whether this can be facilitated through government-to-government agreements. The Russian Deputy Energy Minister is scheduled to visit Sri Lanka soon, which will allow us to further formalize these discussions. Regarding the issue of obtaining oil from Iran, certain countries that own shipping vessels are able to take advantage of such opportunities at this time, but we do not have that same capacity. Nevertheless, we appreciate that statement. Currently, we have placed several orders for both crude oil and refined oil. Tenders have been opened and we expect those stocks to arrive. In fact, we are scheduled to open another tender today. Based on the tenders already opened, a number of oil shipments are expected to arrive in April. We will have to manage our fuel supplies based on these arrivals.
Move forward, Sri Lanka.
Find everything you need for your home, office, business and factory. Visit b2b.lk Marketplace.
Sailor Enterprises presents Russell Peters returns to Colombo for the Relaxed World Tour, 31st March 2026 at the all-new Lumina Hall in the City of Dreams, powered by the Australian Migration Consultants. Tickets out now on bookmyshow.com.
A set of guidelines has been issued to all government institutions to minimize energy consumption. Commissioner General of Essential Services Prabhat Chandrakirti points out that it is the responsibility of all public and private sector institutions to use the existing fuel reserves sparingly.
Office transport and fuel management.
Public transport or carpooling or group transport methods must be used whenever possible when commuting for duty. Online methods are mandatory for meetings and discussions whenever possible. Electronic methods must be used for all documentation and information exchange. Physical transportation of documents must be minimized. A program must be developed to minimize fuel consumption for vehicles owned by the state sector.
Electricity and energy conservation.
Utilize natural light whenever possible. Use electric fans instead of air conditioners at every possible opportunity. Open windows during morning hours to obtain natural ventilation. Deactivate air conditioners for at least 1 or 2 hours during working hours daily. Air conditioners must be completely switched off in areas where they are not essential. It is mandatory to maintain air conditioner temperatures at 26 degrees Celsius or higher. Maximize the use of daylight and switch off unnecessary lights. Authorities must take steps to light only essential locations and roads during the night. Minimize the use of elevators in institutions and promote the use of stairs as much as possible. Illuminated advertising boards and billboards in various locations must be switched off after 9 p.m.
Institutional operating procedures.
If the necessary technical facilities are available, services should be obtained via online methods without calling staff to the office. Ensure that offices remain closed after official working hours and on weekends, except in cases of absolute necessity.
Our target is to reduce energy consumption by at least 25%. Accordingly, we have issued the necessary guidelines to government officers to use fuel and energy sparingly. Furthermore, we appeal to the general public to adapt to these measures and act voluntarily to the best of their ability. We can achieve this. In a situation like this, such cooperation becomes significant support to sustain the economy. Therefore, we hope that the government, the private sector and the general public will act accordingly. This applies to holidays as well. Depending on how the situation develops in the future, we may have to take further steps, but we can manage the situation if we at least adhere to these current measures.
ඉදිරියේදී වර්ධන තත්ත්වයන් අනුව මීට වඩා දේවල් කරන්න සිද්ධ වේවි. නමුත් මේ කළමනාකරණය කරගන්න පුළුවන් අඩුතරමේ මේවට අනුගත වුණොත්.
What is the current status of fuel stocks in our country?
අපිට මේ වන විට පවතින සංචිත සහ තහවුරු කරන
With the current reserves and the confirmed shipments, we have nearly 134,000 metric tons of diesel available. An additional 124,000 metric tons ordered for April are scheduled to arrive. Accordingly, we have enough diesel to last approximately until the second week of May. Regarding petrol, there are currently 151,656 metric tons in our reserves and in shipments currently en route. Another 55,300 metric tons are due to arrive in April. This ensures that 92-octane petrol stocks will last until the third week of May. We opened a tender on the 17th March, through which we secured some of the diesel and petrol quantities for April and crude oil for June. Another tender is being opened today, though I do not have the specific details regarding that one yet. In the meantime, a few private sector shipments were cancelled. The main issue arose because one of our crude oil shipments was cancelled and there were concerns regarding the crude oil ship scheduled for April. That is why we opened that specific tender. Furthermore, we have appointed a committee to decide whether such emergency purchases should be made and in the future.
ඉදිරියේදී එවැනි හදිසි මිලදී ගැනීම කරන්න ඕනද කියන එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි කමිටුවක් පත් කළා තියෙනවා.
What is the status of the electricity supply?
අද ජල විදුලිය ගත්තොත් අපේ තියෙනවා අද වෙනකොට ස්ටෝරේජ් එක ගිගාවොට් අවර්ස් 675ක් 153ක වගේ ස්ටෝරේජ් එකක් සිස්ටම් එකේ තියෙනවා.
If we look at hydropower today, we have it. As of today, we have a storage of about 665 gigawatt hours in the system. We are managing the system at its maximum capacity while conserving that hydropower until the next monsoon season arrives. At the same time, we have to consider the current situation. As everyone knows, February, March and April are months with very dry weather conditions. With this dry weather, the demand for electricity has increased. The day with the highest peak demand was last Monday, reaching 3,089 megawatts. If we look at energy consumption, we managed 60.56 gigawatt hours from the system for Sri Lanka's consumption last Tuesday. This means that even under these dry weather conditions and despite the fuel crisis, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has met our requirements. Without any power cuts anywhere in Sri Lanka, we were able to provide for that record high demand of 3,089 megawatts. And it wasn't just that one day. Looking at that week, there has been a continuous increase from then until today. Reaching 3,000 megawatts is now becoming a frequent record, around 3,000 to 3,050 megawatts. Similarly, daily energy demand remains consistently at the level of 58 to 59 gigawatt hours. Despite this, we have maintained an uninterrupted power supply. We conduct a real-time operation, and our primary goal in this real-time operation is providing continuous electricity. To ensure this, we hold a meeting with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation every Tuesday. Along with that meeting, we provide a 45-day rolling plan, a 5-week ahead plan. Along with that meeting, we provide a 45-day rolling plan, a 5-week ahead plan. In our latest update today, we have provided the plan up until the end of April, and we received confirmation today as well that requirements will be met.
ahead plan එකේදී අපි අන්තිම දුන්නේ අද දීලා තියෙනවා අප්‍රේල් අන්තිම වෙනකන් අපිට අදත් ඒ confirmation එක තියෙනවා.
What is the current status of the gas supply?
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපේ ලිට්‍රෝ ගෑස් සමාගමේ ගබඩාව
Generally, the storage capacity of our Litro gas company is only about 8,000 metric tons. However, our monthly requirement fluctuates between 30,000 and 33,000 metric tons. Therefore, we cannot import the entire requirement at once. We import based on that 8,000 metric ton storage limit, which means Litro can only store enough gas for about 5 days at a time. To manage this, the Geogas trading company brings large shipments to the Maldives, and from there they supply the required gas to us using smaller vessels every 3 to 4 days. For the month of March, Litro's gas requirement is 33,000 metric tons, but we have ordered 38,000 metric tons. These stocks are currently being received. For April, we have estimated a requirement of 30,000 metric tons, but we have already ordered 38,000 metric tons for that month as well. According to these orders, a stock of 30,000 metric tons arrived in the Maldives at the beginning of March, and we have received our required portion from that. Additionally, 2 more shipments totaling 38,000 metric tons are scheduled to reach the Maldives within March to supply our country. Another stock of approximately 30,000 metric tons is due to reach the Maldives in April. This is how the operation is structured. Therefore, Litro Gas is providing an adequate supply. Regarding Lav's Gas, they have informed us that they will provide 8,000 metric tons on the 30th and 31st March and another 21,000 metric tons between the 25th and 27th April. Typically, Lav's Gas supplies about 7,000 to 8,000 metric tons to the local market per month. When you combine Litro's 38,000 metric tons and Lav's 7,000 tons, the total expected amount exceeds our national requirement. While we are aware of distribution issues in certain areas, the gas supply is now becoming regularized to a certain extent.
As ensuring food security is a primary goal of the government, the President has instructed the formulation of an integrated program to supply the fertilizer required for the Yalla season without any shortage. These instructions were given during a discussion held today.
The discussion was held this morning at the Presidential Secretariat with officials from the Ministry of Agriculture and chief executive officers of fertilizer importing companies. The focus was on the disruptions to supply chains caused by the ongoing war in the Middle East. Attention was directed toward immediate measures to maintain sufficient fertilizer stocks for paddy and other crops during the Yalla season. It is reported that extensive discussions were held regarding fertilizer import plans as well as maintaining and properly managing adequate fertilizer reserves for the next 3 months. Inquiring about the potential contribution from fertilizer companies, the President also highlighted the importance of prioritizing paddy and vegetable cultivation.
While Sri Lanka has resorted to such measures for food security and energy conservation, many other countries around the world are also implementing various strategies in this regard.
Philippines. Due to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared an energy emergency. The president has established a committee to ensure the systematic supply, distribution and accessibility of fuel, food, medicine, agricultural products and other essential goods. During a press conference today, Philippine Energy Secretary Sharon Garin said that based on current consumption levels, the country has approximately a 45-day fuel supply. Meanwhile, in an interview with Bloomberg, President Marcos said that aircraft may be unable to take off due to a jet fuel shortage. He added that several countries have already informed their airlines that fuel cannot be provided, which will likely lead to the grounding of those flights. Australia. Fuel prices in Australia have reached record highs over the past few weeks, marking a 25% to 30% increase compared to February. According to the latest report from the Australian Institute of Petroleum, diesel prices in some regions are approaching $3 per litre. In response to the nationwide oil crisis, Australia is implementing several measures to ensure a continuous supply. Yesterday, the Australian government announced successful discussions with Singapore to maintain energy supplies. Foreign media reported fuel queues in several locations across New South Wales, and many filling stations have moved to limit fuel issues.
Move forward, Sri Lanka.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held a discussion with Sri Lankan President Anrukumara Dissanayake on the escalating situation in West Asia and its potential global impact. In a statement shared on X, Prime Minister Modi said the conversation focused on the evolving crisis in West Asia, with particular attention to disruptions affecting global energy security. The two leaders also reviewed the progress of key initiatives aimed at strengthening energy cooperation between India and Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Modi emphasized that India and Sri Lanka remain close and trusted partners, reaffirming their commitment to work closely together in addressing shared challenges. Meanwhile, the Asian Development Bank has increased the amount approved for Sri Lanka this year by an additional $100 million. This decision follows a meeting held this morning between President Anrukumara Dissanayake and a delegation led by the President of the Asian Development Bank, Masato Kanda. The previously approved amount of $380 million has been raised to $480 million. Out of this total, $200 million is expected to be released immediately.
The International Conference on Transforming the TVET Systems for Climate Resilience and Green Jobs was held in Colombo today.
The Ministry of Education, Higher Education and Vocational Education, in collaboration with the Colombo Plant Staff College, hosted the International Conference on Transforming the TVET Systems for Climate Resilience and Green Jobs. Speaking at the event, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuri stressed that the government is committed to addressing issues related to climate change.
Across the region, again across the world, technology is transforming so fast that often societies and governments are racing to catch up with the transformations that are taking place. These transformations, particularly in technology, have profound impact on the labor market, on education, and on the TVET sector. And we really need to be able to keep abreast with these changes and make sure that our people, particularly our young people, are ready to face these challenges and are ready to face the changing labor market and changing economic conditions that they will very soon have to confront. Furthermore, across our regions, all of us are experiencing and witnessing the increased impact of climate-related events, floods, droughts, rising temperatures and environmental stress. This is particularly affecting livelihoods, infrastructure, communities, and also our food security. We ourselves in Sri Lanka are just recovering from a cyclone, the Ditwa, which struck us end of November and which affected every part of our country and exposed the structural weaknesses in our planning and also in our regulatory systems, which placed vulnerable communities in vulnerable situations, which then meant that they were poorly equipped and really not ready to meet with the impact of such a devastating climate event. So this has really shown us that, and this is proving something over and over again, one that our government in particular is very committed to addressing, and this is that it is always vulnerable communities who are further affected by these events that are taking place because we are not addressing the conditions that have led to their vulnerability in the first place. So this is something I think that we all need to address. So while all of us are talking about the need to shift to greener and more sustainable economies and how that can actually open up new pathways for growth and employment, I think we need to reflect on why we have not been able to do this more effectively, or really why we have not been able to make this part of how we in general organize our education and TVET sectors. A strong TVET system can prepare people for these challenges with relevant and future-oriented skills. It can help workers adapt to new technologies, help industries innovate responsibly, and ensure that the transition to a green and sustainable future is inclusive is inclusive rather than unequal, and rather than building on existing inequalities. For Sri Lanka, this transformation is a national priority.
The program provides a platform for dialogue, knowledge exchange and capacity development on policy alignment, leadership and governance, industry partnerships, digital and green skills integration, inclusivity strategies and quality assurance mechanisms in TVET.
The government of Japan officially handed over a state-of-the-art 4D CT angiography system and a modern dental health unit to the Sri Jayawardhanapura General Hospital.
Under the Economic and Social Development Program, the government of Japan officially handed over a state-of-the-art 4D CT angiography system and a modern dental health unit to the Sri Lanka Jayawardhanapura General Hospital today at the hospital premises. The ceremony was attended by Japanese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Akio Isamata, Minister of Health and Mass Media Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa, Chairman of Sri Jayawardhanapura General Hospital Dr. Thamarakairthi Kalubobala, Director Specialist Dr. Dhammika Alha Peruma, Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Senior Professor Padmalal Manake, along with embassy officials and hospital administration members. The Minister of Health and the Japanese ambassador officially inaugurated the new facilities and conducted an inspection of the hospital.
A hospital that was originally gifted by the people of Japan as a 1,001-bed modern institution and has since grown into one of the largest and most respected hospitals of Sri Lanka. Over the decades, this hospital has become a national center of excellence, performing some of the highest numbers of kidney transplants and cardiac surgeries in the country and providing care to thousands of patients every year. Under the Economic and Social Development Program of the Government of Japan, the Sri Jayawardhanapura General Hospital has received a generous grant of cutting-edge medical equipment, including a state-of-the-art 4G angio-CT system and fully equipped dental unit. This facility will also serve as a training ground for undergraduate and postgraduate students, as well as for auxiliary dental staff, helping us to build a new generation of skilled professionals who can serve communities across Sri Lanka.
This 4D angio-CT suite is first of its kind in Southwest Asia. And we are doing this here in Sri Lanka. So this hospital is a symbol, very strong symbol, representing the long-standing friendship between Japan and Sri Lanka. Japan has done a lot together with Sri Lankan government and the people of Sri Lanka in promoting health in this country. Why we are doing this in Sri Lanka? Because we attach great importance to the people. Health of the people is a foundation of any country. And investment in human resource development helped Japan to stand up again after the World War II. And currently, we attach great importance also to the concept of human security, which the government of Japan adopts as a major pillar of its diplomacy. Human security means empowering and protecting the vulnerable people to live in dignity, free from fear and want. That's why we are investing a lot with the money of the Japanese government, which comes from the tax of Japanese people, to help Sri Lankan people and to work together for the prosperity of both countries.
In addition to the handover, the official website of the Sri Jayawardhanapura Hospital was also launched, further strengthening public access to information and services.
The United Nations Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Marc-Andre Franche, has pledged full support for the enhancement of livelihoods and reconciliation-based infrastructure projects for the people of the northern province.
A special discussion between the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Marc-Andre Franche, and the Governor of the Northern Province, Nagalingam Vedanayagam, was held this morning. The meeting covered key priorities in the Northern Province, including unresolved land cases, service delivery, and current challenges facing communities. During the discussion, the UN Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka noted that while direct international donor funding for middle-income countries has decreased, the UN is ready to maximize support for the North through new mechanisms. The UN coordinator also took the opportunity to commend the dedicated service of government and state officials, including Grama Niladaris, during the recent flood disasters.
PE Plus Private Limited celebrated its 25th anniversary today.
PE Plus Private Limited, a subsidiary of the Capital Maharaja Group, marked its 25th anniversary today. The celebration began with multi-religious observances, invoking blessings for the organization and its employees. The event was held under the patronage of Chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group, Sashi Rajamahendran, and attended by Group Director and CEO of the Capital Maharaja Group, Suresh Srinivasan, Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, S.C. Veerasekara, and CEO of PE Plus Private Limited, Gehan Amarasinghe. To commemorate the milestone, an awards presentation was held, honouring employees for their dedication and contributions to the company's growth over the past 25 years.
A group of activists visited the Presidential Secretariat in Colombo today to hand over a petition calling for the resignation of the chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket. The petition, which organisers say has received thousands of signatures online, urges that the chairman steps down immediately in the interest of Sri Lanka Cricket, citing concerns raised in recent weeks regarding the administration of the board.
Speaking to the media in front of the Presidential Secretariat, the petitioners stated that they intend to present this petition to the President to draw the government's attention to issues of public concern. They said that they were unable to meet the President today to hand over the petition and would return over the weekend to deliver it directly into his hands. The petitioners said that the petitioner calls for a change in the leadership of Sri Lanka Cricket, reflecting public dissatisfaction with its current state. They pointed out that their intention is to act for the future of the country's sport and ensure greater accountability within the cricket administration. Sri Lanka Cricket has not yet issued an official response regarding the petition.
A week ago, we introduced an online petition titled Shammi Go Home. So far, 10,371 people have signed it. The President is currently in a meeting and his secretary attempted to accept this on his behalf. We did not hand it over. Instead, we asked for an appointment to meet the President personally. By the time we return for that appointment, we expect to increase these signatures from 10,000 to 100,000. Our people love cricket like a religion, but right now it has been driven into the ground. The cricket board has become a mafia because Shammi's people are in every district across Sri Lanka. Every cricket association is formed by cricket clubs, but these are all fake clubs. They create fraudulent clubs to enter the elections. Once they vote, those votes from 3 people are used to make Shammi the president. As Murali said, if someone like him can go to parliament but cannot enter the cricket board, it is because the mafia keeps only the people they want inside.
මුරලිට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට යන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රිකට් බෝඩ් එකට යන්න බැරි මේ මාෆියා එක ඇතුලේ යාලට ඕන කට්ටිය තියන් ඉන්නවා.
The signatures of some of the best people in Sri Lanka are on this. We are appealing to the President. As you yourself mentioned during the COP meetings, you are well aware of the corruption and fraud within SLC. If you know this, and since you're now the President, we ask you not to let this remain a problem. Do not succumb to this demon or guardian of cricket treasure named Shammi Silva, who is swallowing our cricket. You must take mandatory action regarding this.
මේ ශම්මි සිල්වා කියන මේ බහිරවයට යට වෙන්නේ නැතුව ඔබතුමා මේ පිළිබඳව අනිවාර්යෙන් ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් ගන්න.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.